Mr. Moderator, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, each and every subject that we've discussed so far are fundamentally important. Equally important is education. And to a certain extent, maybe it lies at the heart of also some of the other Millennium Goals that we've discussed. Because apart from the fact that several of the Millennium Development Goals have a direct impact on the well-being of children, two are of special significance: the need to combat AIDS and the need to ensure universal primary education. South Africa's continuing high HIV rate of almost 20% remain one of the greatest challenges in achieving several of the key MDGs. Most obviously, those that affect mortality rates of infants and of children below the age of 5. Primarily because of AIDS, South Africa does not fare nearly as well as it should in these areas. Our infant mortality rate of 55 per 1,000 is still about half of that of the rest of Africa, but far higher than the rate in other middle-income countries. I would, however, like to deal primarily with the importance of education for the attainment of several of the main MDGs. The achievement of universal primary education is indeed one of the key goals. However, education will also play a pivotal role in helping children to attain several other Millennium Development Goals. Education is the key to escaping from poverty. Education is an essential element in the fight against AIDS and other diseases. Education will greatly contribute to children's awareness of gender equality. Firstly, by informing female children of their rights, and secondly, by breaking down male-dominant traditions. The question then is, how are we doing with the achievement of this basic goal in South Africa? In fact, we have virtually achieved two of the Millennium Goals relating to education. According to our Department of Basic Education, 98% of primary school-aged children were enrolled at primary schools in 2008. There was also virtually no gender disparity in the enrollment, and where it did occur, it generally favored girls. However, mere attendance is not enough. It is also imperative that children at primary school should receive quality education and that they should be able to meet certain basic standards at the end of their primary school careers. South Africa is not faring so well in this regard. Despite the enormous national resources that we have committed to education, representing more than 5% of GDP, which translates into 22% of the national budget, we are simply not getting value for our investment. South African primary school children consistently perform badly even in comparison with children from even the poorest countries in Africa. Equally poor results at high school are contributing to a serious education crisis in South Africa. Of the 1.67 million children who entered the education system in 1995, only 368,000 passed matric in 2007, and a mere 85,000 passed with university exemption. More than 1 million children from each age cohort since then have been leaving school without matric. Poor education, and I've just illustrated that we have, unfortunately, poor education. Poor education is in turn one of the main factors in unacceptably high youth unemployment rates. 72% of South Africa's 4.3 million officially unemployed people are below the age of 35. New entrants to the labor market, primarily young people leaving school and university, comprise 41% of those who are officially unemployed. Youth unemployment, in turn, then, contributes to the difficulty of achieving other Millennium Development Goals, including the eradication of extreme poverty. What are the causes for this education crisis? Certainly, they do not include any lack of willingness on the part of the government to deliver quality education. I'm not questioning that. I would hazard to identify the following problems. The first is the adoption of an inappropriate education model. When the ANC came to power in 1994, it idealistically wanted to introduce the very best education model possible. As a result, it decided to implement outcomes-based education, which looked excellent in theory, but proved to be entirely unsuitable for most South African schools. Outcome-based education might possibly function effectively in advanced first world societies, but has proved to be completely inappropriate for most South African communities where there is a requirement for sound basic education. Fortunately, the Zuma administration has come to grips with this problem and announced significant changes to that model earlier this week, and we all have high hopes that the new initiative towards a new system will resolve some of the major problems I've referred to. The second problem was that in its haste to reform or discard the old education system, the government also dismantled some valuable institutions like teacher training colleges and the apprenticeship system. We had a very good old apprenticeship system. After leaving school, kids would get proper skills to prepare them to become a fitter and turner or a plumber or a builder or a plasterer or whatever. That has fallen into disuse. As a result, we have not been producing enough properly trained primary school teachers, and most of our artisans are now over the age of 50. Another problem arose from the insistence of teachers' trade unions that the government should abolish the old system of school inspectors. As a result, standards declined and teacher discipline became lax or non-existent, to the extent that teachers could often not be found at their posts, at their desks in front of their classes. Once again, the Zuma administration is coming to grips with this problem and is insisting that teachers should perform better and effectively. The 9 newly created provinces became the main education providers. Some, like the Western Cape and Gauteng, functioned quite well, but others, like for instance the Eastern Cape, performed very poorly. There was also a massive movement away from mother tongue education. School governing bodies were quite rightly given broad responsibilities for the running of schools and the determination of the language policy. Most schools in black areas chose English as the medium of education at the earliest possible time, in what I believe to be the mistaken belief that this would advance their children's education and integration into the modern economy. They were tragically mistaken. Experienced throughout the world. In the old days, if you spoke about mother tongue education, you were accused that's apartheid speak. But scientific research has shown, and experience throughout the world has shown, conclusively, that children should receive education for the first 6 to 7 years while they're in school in the language that they understand best. And for foreigners here, I want to remind you we have 11 official languages in South Africa. And that many rural children, black rural children, grow up in a home where no English is spoken, no Afrikaans is spoken, only Zulu. And in other parts, only Sotho, and in other parts, only Venda. They do not get 6 or 7 years education in that language which they best understand while they properly master English. So, what do we have in effect? We have in effect that a large portion of South African children have been taught in English, a language that they do not understand properly, by teachers who themselves quite often do not speak the language very effectively. For many children, the result has been educationally crippling. Once again, the government, and I'm glad to be able to say this, is showing that it is aware of the problem and is planning and taking steps to promote mother tongue education in a totally different way, and this is to be welcomed with enthusiasm. In closing, the future success of South Africa's children and the country's ability to attain the 8 Millennium Development Goals will be strongly influenced by our ability to deliver good quality education to all. After a shaky start, there are promising signs that we are beginning to move in the right direction. This surely is the great value of MDGs. They enable us to set clear targets and to measure our performance accordingly. They hold the promise of substantially improving the lives of children, not only here in South Africa, but throughout the world. And it is for that reason that I really want to welcome the initiative once again of KidsRights. I think it's a timely conference about a burning issue at the right time. And I want to reiterate what I said this morning. I hope that a mighty message will go out from this conference to shake the world alive. Thank you.